What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. And that was the new intro song you just listened to. Let me give credit where credit is due, Casino. It is by
funky
Sound Roll, and it's funky because it's called Funky Mayhem. So that will be our new song going forward. We just switched song services or whatever to a better one. It's called, what is it called? Upbeat. So, and you know what? That song, very upbeat, Casino.
It was. It also makes me ready to dive into the podcast. It was very, very exciting. It made me feel like that, we have a bone to pick on this podcast for somewhat reason. I don't know.
I mean, we do usually have bones to pick, so that's very true. And also introduce.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Never mind. No, we're moving on. Good call.
This is what is it? This should be a new, season of this podcast, Casino, because you got finally a 4K camera and a light, which is why you are glowing on this episode, and not just from your whiteness, but from an actual light. Yeah. And we should not be in 4K, Casino. These pores are so deep on both of our faces.
I don't like seeing it. I don't like seeing the purple bags under my eyes and the white and gray tinge in my beard.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase my stubble, because now you can see that it's not even like a really good beard. It's literally just like pubic hair on my face. So
I mean, that's what I've always thought about you. But we are so attractive in real life, but just from a distance, Casino. But in distance, I don't even feel like we're this clear. Like, you need to be squinting to really, really see the attractiveness for us. But, Casino, we are here today to talk about just a wild weekend of sports. And the first thing that happened before we get to NFL was college football. So let's talk about what wild weekend in college football it was. But before we get into the national news, we have to get into the local news.
Hey, it was national.
It was national, and it was a primetime game that I watched all of. And it was a bitter pill to swallow when we record this in Vegas. Casino and I are both born and raised here. So UNLV.
I'm a UNLV alum.
Yes, I've been to UNLV. So there's that. But let's talk about UNLV, Casino. What happened?
They just didn't execute towards the end of the game. I thought they played really well. I thought they played how they should have for the most part. I felt like they should run the ball a little bit more. They had more success that way. To take away time from the Syracuse offense, who is still the best passing offense in the nation. And that's what worried me is even though UNLV picked up their secondary, got them a little better in the offseason, they're not top 25 secondary. But that's what happened. They had their chances late to close out that game. They had the body on them with the 4th and 1 or whatever it was, and they just couldn't stop them. I did not like the fact that there was still this is my only gripe, where there was 23 seconds left after Syracuse scored their touchdown to tie it. UNLV had all 3 timeouts, and I don't understand why they didn't try to get up there and get a field goal range, and they just elected to go to OT. That I just don't get. I like Barry Odom a lot. He's done what he's done in 2 years. Typically doesn't even start for 3 years for most coaches. So I still love the guy. I mean, UNLV's never been this good in their existence. So, we can't be beggars and choosers. You know what I mean? This is the best they've ever been. So to be upset that they didn't win that game and now they're out of rankings, it was tough to watch because they played outstanding. They had that's 2 games in a row where they had a block punt for a touchdown. They had interceptions. They played really good. The quarterback played, again, really good. I thought it was just an outstanding performance, but they just couldn't execute against Syracuse at the end of the game. So
yeah,
still have some votes though. I did check the AP poll and the coaches poll. They both, when I say both, Syracuse now too, They both have votes in both respected polls, so they're not, they didn't get crushed. And mainly that has to do with the nice segue here with all the other teams losing in week, whatever that week 6. Woo!
Yes. And I
Wow.
sent you, what is it, that picture where it was so just on Saturday alone, not even talking about the night before on Friday, when, as you just talked about, UNLV also lost. But in terms of other ranked teams, number one, Alabama lost, number four, Tennessee lost, number nine, Mizzou lost, number 10, Michigan lost, number 11, USC lost. By all accounts, Miami also should have lost Saturday
Also should have
night.
lost. And then and
So
then and then but they didn't. All right. So they didn't. But then you also had UNLV, if you just want to get all the top 25, UNLV lost. And then also SMU beat at that time Louisville 22. SMU is now ranked 25. So that was
oh,
a good.
Michigan also lost. Did I say
And then
Michigan?
Michigan
Or
also
yes,
lost.
Michigan did lost.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
Michigan's on there. So that was 7 games in the top 25, almost 8 top 25 teams lost. But the crazy part is you said 5 of the top 11 teams lost, which is
yeah.
just insane. Where do you want to start? I think we should save the Alabama one for last, personally.
Okay. Then let's start bottom up.
Got it. So
Let's
UNLV,
go.
we talked about that one. Then we had the Louisville, SMU.
The last thing I want to say about the UNLV Syracuse game is I actually think since the Sluka transferred, I think Malik Williams has stepped in and been a better quarterback.
Oh, he's been
The
outstanding.
quarterbacking was not the issue in this game. It was giving up 44 points to Syracuse.
Yeah, and but
Like,
again, I knew that could have been an issue.
yeah,
That's what I talked about. I knew that could have been an issue because they have the number one passing offense in the nation, and when it comes to like yards per and all that, blah 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 blah. Um, that that's what I was worried about with, even though the improved secondary. Again, no, we've already talked about that, but
yeah.
they should have just ran the ball and kept it away from the Syracuse offense a little bit more. That was just my only gripe about the game. Plus, then not going for it towards the end of the fourth quarter when you had time and 3 timeouts.
Yeah, but yeah, if I really think what their biggest challenges now are going to be,
Yeah, if
I
they want to
really
make
think Boise State
yeah,
is
if
going to
they
be
want
the
to make
biggest.
the playoffs, if they want to make the national playoff, they're going to have to beat Boise State now or whenever they play in like 3 weeks, and then they will have to beat them again. Most likely, it's going to happen in the conference tournament because I see both of these teams
Yeah,
winning out the rest of their games outside of when they play each other. Because I do think UNLV will take care of Oregon State. They'll be tough, but I think they'll take care of them and all the way down the line. So
yeah, I think San Jose State would be the only one that would be potential, but
yeah,
they
but
should annihilate Hawaii, San Diego, and Nevada. They
and
should
Utah
annihilate.
State and all those other
Yeah,
teams. I think it's going to be totally good from here on out until 3 weeks we play Boise State and then hopefully play them again in the conference tournament. We'd have to beat them twice, I think, if UNLV wants to advance.
yeah, and then actually, let's talk about Boise State. They
Yeah,
won
let's talk about them.
62-30 against
I was
Utah
watching
State.
that game. I was hoping that they would lose, but man, did they put a thumper? And I watched. There was so many highlights for that game because of the high score. I hate that field. I fucking hate it. It's so distracting. I don't know how you could play on that field.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't, it's, you realize why most fields are just green like grass, or they just make it where it's astroturf that is also green like grass. Because when you're watching that, you never notice the field and it's pleasant to look at. When you're watching a Boise State game, it starts hurting your eyes after a while. It really does just start like going like, I
Yeah.
don't like this. Like,
The
remember
the
when
the Go for it.
the NBA tournament was doing all the crazy things on the court, just, and it was
Yeah,
just like,
for like the winter tournament thing. I couldn't
yeah,
stand them.
and it was just like, "Oh, now I realize why all courts kinda look the same," because
Yeah.
it's, like, not enjoyable to look at. It
Yeah,
really
there's
isn't.
there's 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 in the college basketball, they have a lot of weird courts too. There is, I would say 95% of the courts in college basketball I hate.
I
I
agree.
I absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
The one that it's very distracting, but the one I think is cool is Oregon's because it's just the tree,
Oh,
like
I
the
do
shadows
like
of the
that
trees,
one.
but
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
still very fucking distracting.
And also, when the NBA did it for the Las Vegas, tournament, I forget the in-season tournament, 100% of the courts I hated. 100%. There wasn't one that they did that looked good. all of them, 100%. But I also think we need to talk about, and why I wanted to talk about Boise State, not just the UNLV connection, but the Ashton Genty, who is the running back for the running back for Boise State right now is currently already week 6 in, right? 6 weeks in, halfway through the college season, already has 1,347 yards, 14 touchdowns. And then there was also, and I'll get Casino's opinion on this as well. There was also this great meme of he just stands in the backfield like Michael Myers. Casino's back. Casino, I'm talking about the Boise State running
Yeah,
back
that
who
kid.
just
Yeah,
had
he's insane.
insane season. I just read his stats: 1,300 yards,
He's
14 touchdowns in week 6.
dude.
Like,
This kid is 100% gonna crush it once he goes to the NFL. He's going to the NFL.
oh yeah. Did you see the memes of now that it's October that he stands in the backfield before he gets the ball like Michael Myers? He just stands straight up and just runs forward and grabs the ball. It's incredible. I mean, I've
Dude,
never
he's insane. He's absolutely. It's hard to even just talk about him without just being like in awe.
Yeah. But which let's move on to, I guess now that they're ranked 24th, we can talk about the Michigan loss. We talked about it when we were previewing college football. Washington was favored in this game by like 65% of all of how ESPN does like the win probability, which again, I don't know where they get their stats and stuff like that for win probability, but everybody was picking against Michigan in this game. That game, I watched most of it, was pretty an ugly watch. I don't even think Washington is that good this season, and they still kind of manhandled Michigan all over the court, or all over the field, I should say.
Oh yeah, over
We
the
knew
field.
Michigan was a fraud from pretty much day one this season, right? They lost their coach, their quarterback, everybody that basically made them
Made
a
them who they
threat
were.
and
Yeah,
made them the national champions last year. So them losing to Washington by 10 points. Honestly, the most shocking thing about that is it was only 10.
yeah, yeah. My coworker, he's from Seattle. He's a big dog fan, and he was we calls them the dogs. He was really really happy. Um,
Uh
yeah.
let's let's go to
Move on.
USC Casino.
USC. Ooh,
They
man, are we USC? Man, they suck.
Well, yeah. I mean, last year, what the thing everybody kept saying was the only thing that was making them look better than they actually were was Caleb Williams. He was their entire offense. So the second he leaves, everybody was still trying to do the like, oh, the new quarterback stepped in and he looked great and won a bowl game and all that kind of stuff. I thought USC would be much better. I've said multiple times on this podcast that I thought they were one of still the best teams in this league, and then they lose to they lost to Michigan, which I was like, how? And then they lose to Minnesota, which is just straight up embarrassing. How do you lose to Minnesota, Casino?
Dude, I
So
don't know. The Golden Gophers, man.
I'll admit when I was wrong. I was 100% wrong on USC. I thought they would be
Well, I'm
much
really
better.
excited about this because I don't think they're going to get rid of him. I don't think they're going to bench the quarterback Miller Moss. However, I really would love to see the UNLV guy that was at Liberty and then Liberty High School here in Vegas and played for UNLV last year and made UNLV really good. Jordan Mayava. I want to see him get the start, man. I want to see him because I mean he had the chance to go to Georgia, but he'd elected to go to USC for possible playing time. And you know what? I'm not impressed with Miller Moss, man.
Yeah, nothing.
I
There's
I would
nothing
I
there.
would no, I would like to see them put in Mayava and see what he can do. See what he can do. Let's go.
And then let's jump to what was next. We just talked USC, we talked Michigan, Mizzou, who lost to there's so many. Oh, they got absolutely annihilated by Texas A&M 41-10. This was a watching this game and switched away about 3 minutes into the second quarter. Like this was just annihilation. Texas A&M put 10 on them in the first quarter, 14 in the second, 10 in the third, and then finished with a
Hey,
touchdown in the seventh
I
or in the
like
fourth.
seeing
I
it.
mean,
Texas A&M, man, I told you, I want to see them continue winning. I want them to stay at the top. They are still beating Texas. They are still beating Texas right now, and I love every second of it. I
do
do.
Texas A&M and Texas play each other? They do last week of the season, November 30th. So who knows what their
Well, I
ranking
mean,
will be
Texas
then?
A&M, they are 5-1 and Texas is 5, but this is I mean, I'm saying for the conference currently right now.
Yeah,
The only
because it's
undefeated
in
yeah, the
conference
only
time.
undefeated team in that conference right now is Texas. I mean, you have Arkansas, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, um, which is just like that's just an insane that's just an insane lineup of good teams.
Yeah.
Tennessee, Oklahoma, it's mind blowing. It's mind
Well,
blowing.
also, if in 2 weeks, if Texas A&M beats LSU, they should be have only one loss when it comes to that Texas game. I don't think Texas is losing a game this season, so that very well could be for who's number 1 ranked in the country,
And I'll tell you
right?
right now, if right, and if so Texas A&M wins out and say they do well wins out and they lose to Texas, just say that, and then they win the rest of their games, and so they'll have 2 losses on their docket. I don't and one of them being Texas, I don't understand how that team would not get an at-large bid.
Mhm.
I just wouldn't. I mean, what was their one loss though? How bad was it? Um, so it was Notre Dame, right? To start, yeah, it was Notre Dame,
Yeah.
23-13. But
Eh, I mean,
mm,
who knows how Notre Dame finishes the season right now? What is it? They are currently ranked 11th, so that's not a bad loss. That's like losing 10 points to the 11th ranked team. And
No,
again,
so they're tied for 11th. Yeah, there's no 2-12 right now. Iowa State and Notre Dame are tied.
yeah, so that's not a bad loss at all. Especially week 1, they always say you'd rather lose early than lose late. If
Yeah,
they run the table and then it's them in Texas and they barely lose to Texas, I think there's no way they fall to the top
yeah.
10.
Let's go
No
Texas
way.
A&M. Let's go Texas A&M. Let's go.
And then Casino, the 3 that I really or the 2 that I really wanted to talk about was obviously Tennessee and Alabama.
Okay,
The Alabama one, we can do a deep dive on because that one was insane. But the
that's what I want to
Tennessee
talk
one,
about. Yeah, I thought
again,
Tennessee was was better than that, man. Oh,
yeah, I think it's not that they lost, it's that they only put up 14. I think that's really the story of this game that just Arkansas, again, Arkansas a team that are they good? Are they not good? I don't really. I've watched all of that Arkansas Oklahoma State game, and I was like, they look good. Their offense is good, but I never thought their defense was really anything to write home about. And then they hold. What is it? They hold Texas A&M last week. They barely lose by 4, and then they beat Tennessee the next week by 5. So maybe I underrated how good Arkansas really is because I mean I know they're 4-2, but
right,
yeah, I mean, their defense again, their offense has always been the thing you have to worry about. Their defense 2 weeks in a row though, stepping up. Because again, we just talked about how good Texas A&M was. Everybody was picking Tennessee to be like one of the top 3 best teams in the nation. So for them to only put up 2 touchdowns and lose by 5, that's rough. That's a rough
right.
loss to
Well,
me.
I will say thank you so much, Arkansas, for giving UNLV coach Barry Odom. I appreciate you very much.
And then Casino, the game of the week we have to talk about
Uh,
is Vanderbilt. Now, this is the thing I do not understand. We literally just last week were like, maybe we underrated Alabama. Maybe Alabama's really good. Maybe we underrated them. And then they literally lose the next week. They lose to Vanderbilt 40-35 and only fall from 1-7. Do you would you like a refresher on the loss that that Vanderbilt suffered this season,
yeah,
Casino?
let's hear it.
They lost 36-32 in week 3 against Georgia State. Georgia, they lost 36-32, and then the other games they played well in, but again, if your only loss of the season is to Georgia State and then you go in and beat Alabama. How does Alabama not fall minimum out of the top 5?
I have no
Minimum.
idea.
Vanderbilt's 3-2 right now. And I explain this to me, Casino. I
I
don't
can't.
understand.
I can't explain that to you, dude. Like
They
there's no way I can explain that to you because it doesn't make sense.
The last time, I believe I saw something where the last time Vanderbilt beat Alabama was in the 1800s. It was
Yeah.
some ridiculous thing like that.
I'm trying to pull up all the different stats um about last time this has happened, something to like this stature, because they just had about a million different things about this, about the history of what just happened, um which I'm not going to try to find. I was ill prepared for that. um but this was an insane win. I love every second of it. Oh man. I really, because I hate Alabama so much. I'm glad this just crushed. Glad this crushed them in their souls. But my favorite part about this whole story, though, was after the game. Obviously, all the students run out. They rushed the field. They broke down the goalpost, and then they took it out of the stadium. They took it down the main street to the water, and they chucked it into the water, which I thought was the greatest thing. But they obviously retrieved it because there is memorabilia now, like pylons and parts of the dirt and parts of the goalposts are all being sold for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the internet right now, which I think is
And
the craziest thing.
I was being facetious, Casino. They have the last time they won against Alabama was 40 years ago. So
Wow.
40 years ago was the last time Vanderbilt had beaten Alabama, which that is just insane. It was also the Commodores' first victory against a top 5 team in program history.
Well,
So
yeah,
they
they are 0-10 against their last 10 times against number ones.
Yeah,
So
and then the last time they'd won in Tuscaloosa was September 29th, 1984. So 6 years before you or I were born was the last time that Vanderbilt beat
So a 4-inch piece of the
Tuscaloosa.
waterlogged post would have run you $1,000, $1,005 at the school's live online auction. That's
That's
just a thousand
that's
dollars
insane.
for a 4-inch piece of that goalpost. I mean, if you're a diehard like Vanderbilt fan and you're like in your like 70s or whatnot, and you're just like have money, you're like, why the fuck not?
Also note for the 1984 matchup, both teams finished that year 5-6. So that win obviously didn't really mean anything to either team. This one means a hell of a lot to both Vanderbilt, and I feel like it won't mean anything to Alabama because again, they only fell from number 7 to or from number 1 to number 7, but crazy shit. Crazy shit. First time they've ever had a victory against a top 5 team in program history. So crazy. And only the 19th win against Alabama since 1903.
Wow.
If I'm correct or if I'm not, they play each other every year or every other year. So for them to only have 19 wins since 1903, that's crazy.
Oops.
That's crazy. But good for
Oh,
Vanderbilt and
I
good
really
for
look. I
all of us
told you I was
Alabama
really,
haters.
really excited about this year's college football playoffs and how everything feels like it matters now
Yeah.
because you have so many opportunities for teams to get into that top 12. That I mean, yes, I'm talking about UNLV, but like UNLV and Boise, like that's a very interesting storyline
Yeah.
because that's a potential of one of those 12 teams that could be into it. Like the fact that we're talking about it is it holds water, which is like goalpost. But it's true. Like those are important storylines. Like we're talking about at large bids. We're talking about even Texas A&M. If even if they have 2 losses on their docket, but that's Notre Dame and Alabama, they still have a shot of getting an at large bid. Like it's fun and it brings so much more to what media can talk about college football. Every week seems to be more important.
Yeah.
Um, because like once a team loses twice or loses like one bad game, you're like, okay, well, before you're like, okay, well, they're done. We don't ever have to watch or worry about that team ever again. Like for the rest of the season, they're done. Now we are
Yeah.
kept narrowing it down to like 6 teams that it could possibly be. But now we're watching 30 teams at all times.
Well, it's also what is it? Specifically for Alabama, this was supposed to be like their like gimme game, right? This was supposed to be their like it's just another team on the schedule we roll through till the big boys. So this week they have South Carolina, who they should most likely crush. But after that, they go. This is a 3 week or this is a 5 week period. They go to number 8th ranked Tennessee, have number 21 ranked Mizzou. Then they go to number 13th ranked LSU. Then they have a gimme in Mercer. Then they go to number 18th ranked Alabama or Oklahoma. So they literally have to go play Tennessee on the road, LSU on the road, Oklahoma on the road in the span of 5 weeks. Like
Dude.
that is a murderer's row of a schedule right there.
And here's the crazy thing is with that conference being so loaded, some
Mhm.
of those big teams that have been ranked all season are going to miss out.
Oh yeah. Right
Because
now,
you
I
can't have
mean,
like a 4 loss team, even if they're all like top 10 teams, like say whoever loses to whoever and they have 4 losses, like you can't give them an at-large bid. You just can't.
well, right now in the conference, Alabama is ranked 10th. Now, obviously, that's because of their conference record only being
Yeah.
1-1.
They say
But
Alabama loses 3 games. Say they
oh
lose
yeah,
3 games with that Vanderbilt loss, and then say it's 2 losses, against a
LSU and
high
Oklahoma.
yeah, a
Yeah,
highly ranked team or and couple 2 ranked teams, right? You're out. You're out. You have 3 losses. Yeah, 2 of them are against ranked teams, but they're teams that are worse than you supposed to be. And then you have that Vanderbilt loss. You don't make the playoffs.
no,
You should not get an at-large bid. I'm sorry.
no. Well, then that's going to become the classic, like, oh, well, is a 2-win Alabama or a 2-loss Alabama team better than a 1-loss
Well, then that's
blah blah
where it
blah?
comes into play the whole rank, like the P4, the P3 rankings and all that.
Yeah, yeah. Which also that would I mean, it's going to be hilarious if it comes down to does a 1-loss UNLV team get in or a 3-loss Alabama team get in? That's going to be a hilarious discussion that will most likely
Oh no, I
happen.
dropped that. Well, that wouldn't really matter because how that would work out is UNLV would have 3 losses if they didn't even or 2 to 3 losses. They wouldn't get an at-large bid. They wouldn't.
Yeah. And Alabama, 100% Alabama will still end up in the playoffs regardless because they want Alabama in their first ever playoff. Like their first ever 12-team playoff. It's going to happen.
Not if they
Uh
get 3 losses. If they get 3 losses and 2 of them are against upper ranked or lower ranked teams, and then you have that Vanderbilt loss, I don't see how you can let them in. If you have like 5 other teams that have
that
only
is
one
true.
loss.
I would say it would be near impossible for them not to make it if Nick Saban was still the coach, but because
Maybe
he's
now,
not,
yeah.
maybe they fall down the rankings a little. But
All
all right,
right, that was a lot
Dino.
of college football.
A lot, I mean, a big weekend, lot to talk
Yeah.
about. Now it is time to jump over to the professional side of it, and Casino, that dastardly bastard, won the week. The only game we differed on was Raiders Broncos. It was basically a pick 'em, and you picked whoever I picked the opposite of. So I thought Raiders would pull this out. Broncos not only pulled it out, they absolutely destroyed them. So right
So how do
now,
we do outside of that?
you had 7 picks right. I
Oh,
had
we did
6.
rough this week.
So this was a rough week. Right now we are currently you're at 40 and I am at 38. So you
Right, but
currently have a 2 game lead.
some of these shook us, man. Some of these shook us to our
Yeah.
core.
None of us, we didn't nail any of the scores correctly, except you are coming dangerously close on a lot of them since we started doing this. So there's
Sweet.
going to be one week where you nail it. But this was not that week. But
Mm.
before we get into the actual games, Casino, the breaking news of the day, it's so breaking, I don't even have a thing for it, is, I will type one up right now, is that Robert Sala has been fired as
Ah,
the head coach of the Jets.
I
Have
did
you
not
seen
know
this?
that. No.
Oh, yeah. It is. Let me
How
make
much of that
sure.
is Rogers? How much of that is Rogers doing?
I would say
All of it?
almost, well, they're going to say that it has nothing to do with him, but apparently Woody Johnson. So this is obviously the talk of the day. There's a lot coming out about it. So here's what we know right now. This is from Ari Merov on Twitter. It's worth noting that Jets owner Woody Johnson never hired Robert Sala.
Woody
His
Johnson.
brother,
Nice name.
Woody Johnson is a great name. Great
Woody
porn
John.
name.
It's a
Uh,
hell yeah, it is.
his brother, Christopher Johnson, not as good a porn name, did at the time. Woody was serving as the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom under President Donald Trump. When the coach he didn't hired isn't delivering results, the pressure was on. So basically, they're saying that the owner of the Jets never hired this coach. It was his brother. And that's why it was so easy for Woody Johnson to basically be like, adios. It is also being reported that Robert Sala firing marks the first time in owner Woody Johnson's 25-year tenure that he has ever fired a coach during the season. It's reported that Woody Johnson thinks his team is in a win now situation, and that's why the call was made. So again, it's weird to be like, we're in a win now situation, but we're going to bring back statistically the worst coach in the league for our upcoming win now season. Right? That seems like the weirdest part of it. Everybody was like, why are they bringing back Robert Sala? Right? In the offseason. And now he's just brought back and fired. What? We're heading into week 6.
6.
It's also noted, last thing, Casino, if the Jets beat the Bills on Monday Night Football this week, they will be in first place in the AFC East.
It's not gonna
So
happen.
I don't think so either, but
I know. I mean, we've been wrong all this whole time, but I mean, the Bills, the Texans are a good team, and the Bills should have won that game. We'll get into that mind blowing decision.
yeah. Let's segue to that. Last bit on the Jets is that their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, is going to be the interim head coach. So the problem has been the offense for the Jets. So let's promote another defensive coordinator to be the head coach. I'm sure it works out great. But let's
You
move.
don't need an offensive coordinator when you have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah. Let's move on to the game you're just talking about, Casino. Arguably game of the week. Even though I would still say it was probably Ravens Bengals.
Ravens Bengals all day was my.
And
I
also
was watching it with my mouth just like ah.
yeah. Also, Falcons Bucks was also pretty great.
Yeah.
Uh, but let's talk Texans Bills as the first game because you just brought it up. Texans win and are now 4-1, 23-20 against the Buffalo Bills.
Oh
23 to
wow.
20 in a game that 100% should have gone to OT. Why didn't it, Casino?
Oh, because apparently the Bills thought that it was smart to go 3 passing plays on their own 5. Like what?
That was
Which
the
I
dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I've never like I'm just flabbergasted on that. And then they had a punt and then it was a decent return. Didn't have to be much, but it got them into Texans into field goal range and they hit a 59-yard field goal for the win. I'm questioning, was Josh Allen, were those the correct plays? Were they supposed to pass it? Were they supposed to pass it or were they supposed to kneel it? Because I don't think Josh Allen was there. He got how this guy is not undergoing concussion protocol is just mind blowing. We have another Miami Gate Tua situation here.
Oh, yeah.
The dude smoked his head, Josh Allen, so hard on that turf or grass or whatever the hell it was. I think it's all turf now, right? Yeah. But anyway, he smoked his head on that ground and he was out. He was out for a while. They stopped the gameplay and he was not there. I don't know how they let him come back in. I don't know how the league allowed him to come back in.
Yeah, it
Like,
has
I
been
mean,
reported from that game he never went into concussion protocol, so he was eligible to return to the game. I mean, he only
has
missed
he
one
gone into
play.
concussion protocol afterwards?
Apparently, as of 26 minutes ago, famed former wrestler, current brain analysis person who's talking all about this is Chris Nowinski, wants an investigation into the Josh Allen concussion protocol and all that kind of stuff
Dude,
because
he
there's
was
been no word on it, but
he was gone.
he was clearly out of it.
He was
Yeah.
gone. And I mean, he went 9 for 30. He didn't have a good game. Like, this was the worst Josh Allen game all season and one of probably the worst of his career.
Yeah. He finished, like you said, 9 for 30, 131 yards, one touchdown, carried the ball 4 times, 54 yards. And despite the end of that game, again, they were down for most of it. At one point, it was 17-3 going into halftime, and then the Bills kind of roared back in the third quarter, putting up 14 points. And then the bonehead plays at the end where they should have just run the clock out. You could even tell the Texans were like, they're going to run the clock out. We're going to overtime. So nobody was happier than the Texans to see a concussed Josh Allen, allegedly concussed Josh Allen, passing the ball 3 times in a row. And then we all saw how that game ended. CJ Stroud had a pretty good game, 28 for 38, 31 yards, one touchdowns, one interception.
He was
Uh,
good.
Again, I feel like I still have as many question marks about both these teams as I do coming out of this game as I did going in. Like nothing in
That's
this
fair.
game changed what I still think there's something off with the Texans. I don't fully know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but when
And
you
that's
watch
totally
them,
fair. I saw it. I totally agree. But
yeah,
again, we're now you need to start figuring it out. It's coming up in this week 6. You know, you got your 4-1. You're doing okay. You know, you did what you need to do. You got the W's, but now you need to figure it out before you start rolling into the late part of the season, and then get into the playoff time. Which I'm not worried about them yet. I'm not.
no, I think they'll figure it out.
They're still
It
getting it
doesn't
done.
Yeah. It doesn't it's not concerning as much as it is confusing. Like
Yeah,
I don't understand what is missing from them, but when you watch
but
them, they just look less explosive than they did last year.
yeah, the Bills should be 4-1. The Texans should be 3-2. I mean,
Yeah.
not maybe not, but it should have gone to overtime. But anyway, that's how I feel about that game. I still think
Let's
the
move
Bills are
on.
going to crush it. The Jets
Yeah.
aren't good.
No, let's move on to the other game that I thought was in contention for Game of the Week Casino, and that was the Ravens who roughed up the Bengals, and then they had maybe the stupidest overtime I've seen in a long
By
time,
both
which
teams.
is yeah. So Lamar Jackson. So this game goes into OT.
First
Ravens
off,
end up winning. Go
before
ahead.
before you talk about the game, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Nice little
Yeah,
soft clap for both of them. They
dude.
played outstanding. Joe Burrow with 30 for 39, almost 400 yards with 5 touchdowns. Yes, an interception, but I've talked about it. You have more passing attempts, you're going to get an interception. It is what it is. But wow.
This
Wow.
season, this season, Joe Burrow has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and his team is what? 1-4.
Yeah.
Like,
I
how?
mean, Jamar Chase
How?
almost had a 200-yard game. He had 193 yards off of 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Like, this game was so exciting. I mean,
Ugh, this was a
so
great
exciting.
game.
But this is what I thought I mean, I didn't think the Bengals defense was going to be this bad, but this is the offense that I thought that they were going to have. I knew Joe Burrow was going to come back fine. He looks great. He's looked great in the last 3 games. Oh, just can't get those W's. It sucks. But
It's
Lamar Jackson, he's doing great. Derrick Henry looks like a beast.
Yeah, for everybody who in the offseason was saying like they're really going to pay that much for Derrick Henry. They're going to pay that much for Derrick Henry even though they have the number 1 rushing attack. It's like, yeah, this is why you pay this much for Derrick Henry, because all of a sudden you're at the 10-yard line and he rips off a 75-yard run that puts you, I mean, that wins you the game. Like that run
Yeah.
right there was the sole reason they won it. They almost lost it. So the OT of this game
Yeah, go
was,
for it. You break this one down because this was a wild OT.
so Lamar Jackson is calling for the ball for what felt like 10 full seconds, like doing the slapping his, like clapping his hands, kind of being like, okay, let's go. And then they finally hike him the ball. He fumbles it. Earlier in the game, he did the exact same thing and then picked it up, made like three guys miss, and then threw the best touchdown, being throw you're going to see on the run. Like, it's up there. It was such a good play that you saw the Bengals guy fall to his knees and just be like, what the fuck do I have to do to stop this guy? Like, it was, so you think that same thing's going to happen. This time he doesn't get the fumble back. The Bengals pick it up. They go like right down the field, and I think it was like a 40 something yard field goal. The snap gets bobbled. The kicker like shanks it. And then 2 plays later, I think it might have even been the next play, Derrick Henry just goes 70 yards. Right, they go, and then they immediately
Yeah.
kick a field goal on 1st and goal, and just the game's over. What a we had my wife's friend George, who you've met. You walked down the aisle with him.
I did.
Uh,
He's cool dude.
yeah, he
We're both
was.
straight men too.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
No, shout out to George. He
What's
was
up,
over
man?
here like installing new sinks, and
Oh,
I
he's
was
here?
watching the
Oh,
game. Well, he was when this game was happening.
got it.
Uh, and he's like, "Oh, who's winning?" And I'm like, "The Bengals are just gonna win right now. The Ravens just fumbled." Like a minute later, I was like, "All right, the Ravens won." And he was like, "What? I thought you just said." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. It just this happened within the span of 90 seconds." What a weird game. But again, Joe Burrow having maybe the best season of his career so far, and his defense is just giving up again 41 points every week to
So
I mean they
UNLV defense.
yeah, they've had a hard schedule so far, but if they don't beat the Giants on Sunday Night Football, like,
Which, I mean, hey, now the Giants have a good shot of that. I'm questioning this one.
yeah, I no, the Giants, I mean, 2-3, they look as good as any of the other, like, I feel like every team this year is 2-3 or 3-2. It
Correct.
feels like really everybody is.
Because
So
almost everybody is.
anybody. It's what?
Because it almost is. Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
like 5 teams that's not. Yeah.
Anybody can beat anybody this year, and I guess that's good, except for when you're watching your team and you're like, we should be annihilating them, but we're losing. Like the Ravens should have came into this game being like, we're gonna annihilate them, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's a fumble away from losing. But next up, Casino, let's talk about the Falcons and the
Bucks.
Buccaneers.
Woo.
What a Thursday night game. All of a sudden, Kirk Cousins is just like money in prime time.
Yeah, primetime Cousins, dude. I didn't know that old man can do that. He threw for all right, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, an interception. Yes, he's got an interception, but he threw almost 60 times
Yeah.
with a 42 completions out of 58. Like, wow.
And I also
Kirk
had Drake
Cousins.
London on my fantasy team who
Oh,
went
he went
12
off.
for 154 and a
Yeah, and you know
touchdown.
what? And Baker did not have a bad game. Baker still
No.
was 19 for 24, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, I still think Baker's good. Baker's gonna bake, but I'm really happy that the Falcons won this because now they're both 3-2. It's either one of these teams to win the division. I'm really excited to watch these two teams down the stretch.
Yeah. And
I'm
I'll
very
tell you what,
excited.
we agreed at the beginning of the season, like, oh yeah, this is the Falcons
Falcons division,
division, like
but
bar
Bucks,
none.
but with the Bucks making the playoffs.
Yes. Now it feels like, I mean, you look at the standings right now, all those teams, it's 3-2 for both the Falcons and the Bucks. Saints are 2-3, and then Carolina Panthers all of a sudden with Andy Dalton are like feisty. So now what we thought would hands down be the worst division is like a really fun division where who know, like the Saints, Bucks, Falcons going into the last week of the season could all be within a half game of each other, all within a game of each other. Like every division this year, I mean, outside of the Chiefs,
Fuck the Chiefs.
Yeah, outside of the AFC West, every other, or I guess, and the Texans as well, but every other division feels real close because it is. Every team's within a game and a half of each other. But yeah, also it's funny that this was like Matt Ryan appreciation night, and then Kirk Cousins came in there and basically annihilated all the passing records that Matt Ryan did
That
have.
was the fun.
You just muted yourself, Casino. I don't
Sorry,
know
I
what
muted
happened.
myself. Sorry.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Matt Ryan. I really do. Dude, you should have won that Patriots Super Bowl. You
Yes.
should have. Like,
Yeah.
there were some dumb calls where you were in field goal range. They should have won that game.
Oh,
They
man,
should
who
have
was the
they
offensive coordinator for that game? Go on.
anyway, they should have won that game. I feel bad for him, and then he just couldn't do anything after that. And then now in his appreciation night, he gets all of the passer, um, all the different records just beat, and like, oh, dude, can he be like the most like unluckiest quarterback in the entire NFL? Like,
Yeah, because you can't even say Russell Wilson had a worse Super Bowl against the Patriots because at least he has a Super Bowl. Like,
yeah,
he already won one. Matt
he did.
Ryan, that was his one and only shot, and then he has to watch bargain basement him come in and just, I mean, on his night, overshine him. 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's insane. 509 yards. Also, they were like legit 509 yards. Like,
Oh
he
yeah,
was he was slinging it.
he was outstanding. Not the
Uh
only old quarterback to have a great week. We'll get to that. We'll keep going. I know we
ooh.
we don't got a lot of time left, but we will keep going.
Yeah, the next game we had on our docket, Casino, was the London game where
Ugh.
the Vikings, our Vikings, the show's Vikings, go in and annihilate the Packers just like we knew they would. They win. Oh, if I can find it, they
The
win.
Packers?
Or I'm sorry, the Jets. It's
Jets.
right there. Ground the Jets.
Easy. Easy,
Uh,
easy now.
they win. I was thinking Rogers. They win 23-17 in London. Um, Not really. Aaron Rodgers, I think they said for like only the fifth or sixth time in his career, threw 3 interceptions, had 3 turnovers. Sam Darnold also threw an interception, no touchdowns. But again, I think
It wasn't a pretty game for the Vikings, but again, that's overseas, it's a long trip, it's jet lag, it is what it is, but yeah, I mean, those are sloppy games. I hate watching those international games because they're sloppy, but man, I just Rodgers losing again. I love every second of it. And those Minnesota Vikings 5-0. Let's go.
and also all the talks about Darnold with the Vikings, but that Vikings defense is really, really good. Like when you watch them play, they're fast, they're physical, and much like the Saints, every hit they have on somebody looks violent. And that's how I like when you're watching defense play. I wish for once in my life, Casino, the Eagles had a defense where it looked like every hit hurt. Because when I watch the Saints and the Vikings and the Jets play defense, all of them just look so painful when they get hit, and I want that for my team. Why
Well,
can't I have nice things?
I do understand that because growing up as a switching gears here, growing up as a Boston hockey fan, the Bruins, before the Vegas Knights got here, I still love the Bruins, but that was such a physical side of hockey. Like I watched, they would just beat the shit out of other teams. They were just they were bruisers. And that was, people didn't want to go play the Bruins because all they did was they would beat the shit out of you. Like they played like every game was a playoff game. They checked you extremely hard. A lot of penalties, but they didn't care. So like I get what you're saying. Like it is enjoyable watching your team be the physical team and beat the shit out of somebody.
Yeah.
And every single play looks like it hurts. So I get that. I get it. It's great. It's fun.
Well, also with the Vikings, so they're 16th ranked in total defense, but they have only allowed so far this season 9 touchdowns. That's it. Just
Mm,
9 touchdowns. Only a couple other teams have allowed fewer. They've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown this entire season.
wow.
They're second in the league
That's
in rush
good.
defense. So, yeah, Vikings defense. I mean, we talked shit about him in that whole Tua situation, but who's that guy? Brian Flores, great fucking defensive coordinator. And again, Robert Saleh, who is just fired today, whatever team picks him up as defensive coordinator, their defense is going to instantly improve. I think both those guys are just great, great coordinators. Maybe not great head coaches. But as far as the Jets go, Casino, we just mentioned it. Robert Saleh fired, defensive coordinator is the new interim head coach. What does the outlook for the Jets season now look like?
Sorry, my daughter was. Can you send that to me again? She was talking
What
to me.
now that they have a new coach, Saleh's gone. Aaron Rodgers is probably running the team now. What does the 2-3 Jets season look like?
It's still going to be abysmal. Like I don't trust this team whatsoever because I don't like Rodgers. I don't like him running the helm. I don't feel like the teams ever respect him, like any of his teammates. He's kind of a tool. Yeah,
Kind of.
they might get Devonte Adams here because Devontae's talked about only either going to the Saints with Derek Carr or going to the Jets, and apparently there's supposed to be a deal in place with the Jets. We're just waiting for it to be approved.
Yeah. I do think that that would solve a lot of the issues, especially if Devonte Adams then goes back to Rodgers. We saw what they could do in uh when they were with Green Bay. But again, I just gave a fellatio to the Vikings defense, and basically the Jets defense is better in every way than the Vikings defense is. So, which I've never said the Jets defense isn't great. They're number 2 in the league in total defense,
Oh no,
only allowed 7 touchdowns, number 2 in passing defense, and I
my
think they
battery died
are.
of my light.
Oh
Oh
no,
no. Now you
Casino's
just
whiteness is back.
well,
Uh,
no, now it just looks like I'm tan. So
but
just 4K tan.
to Jets versus Vikings defense. Jets have the better pass defense. Vikings have the better rush defense. And then they're basically the same polar opposites when it comes to rushing and passing. So both great teams, but it's funny that Darnold basically outplayed Aaron Rodgers in an international game. Imagine if you're over in London and you're like, what does American football look like? And then you walk away from that game being like, wow, that purple quarterback is much better than the green quarterback. And it's just but our last of the marquee games that I wanted to talk about, Casino. Oh no, that was all our marquee games.
Yeah.
The mid matchups, we can just touch on the two that were the most noteworthy. And let's start first with the Monday night game. The Chiefs. Yeah, you like what I did there, Casino? March over the
No.
Saints when the Saints go marching in. You get it? But the Chiefs beat the Saints. They actually beat them without a controversial call to end the game. So that was new for them. They win 26-13. Patrick Mahomes, again, average game. He no touchdowns, 1 interception, a great fat guy run back for that interception, which you always love to see. Fat guy returns. What do they even call it on TV? I believe they say big man.
Yeah.
But
I
everybody
don't know.
knows it's just fat guy. Fat guy running back, which is always great. Kareem Hunt, 102 yards. I saw some ridiculous stat where Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster had like their first career games, both of them in
Yeah.
like 5 years.
So in my Patriot chat with my brother and our friends, we're like, oh, Juju's good now. Oh,
Yeah.
and then he leaves the Patriots and now he's good. Okay, sure.
Well, he also had to have like the 4 guys in front of him get injured before he got like all the
Yeah.
targets.
Well, here's the thing. Travis Kelce, again, not 100-yard game. Dude,
Yeah. But he was good in this game. The
that
last 2 weeks, he's been good.
good. Okay, yeah, he's gotten
Yeah,
but
not great, not generational, but I also don't understand the most frustrating thing when you watch Chiefs games is every time Patrick Mahomes drops back, it's always like we've been talking about like, oh, Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins makes these insane throws that are just in like a position where the defender's draped over his guy and he puts it in the perfect ball placement and stuff like this. When you're watching these Chiefs games, it's like, up there goes Patrick Mahomes to a insanely wide open Travis Kelsey. There's no one within 20 yards of him, and they're running down the field. And then you're like, that was weird. It must have been a blown coverage. 2 plays later, you're like, oh, there's Patrick Mahomes to a wide open Juju Smith Schuster, not anybody within 10 yards of him. I
It's
don't
not in the script, man.
Well, it's just like the scheming and the offense that uh Andy Reid runs. It's just like their
Andy
wide
Reid.
receivers, like they don't need good wide receivers because they don't have defenders within 15 yards of any
Could
of the
you
targets.
could you just imagine the dominance of, I'm not even, players aside, if you had Andy Reid and Bill Belichick on the same team together?
Oh, like you give just Andy Reid, just be like, you do the offense, and then Bill Belichick, you're like, you do the defense, and then we'll just like co-make head coaching decisions.
Yeah.
Like
You have
they'd
the
be
greatest. You have
phenomenal.
one of, if not the greatest defensive coach of all time, with one of, if not the greatest offensive coach of that time. Like that would just
Also, what
that would be
annoys
nightmare
me
fuel. That would be nightmare fuel for all other coaches.
what annoys me so much about the Chiefs is also just like the whole thing of like, oh, remember when Andy Reid was with the Eagles and then they went to one Super Bowl and that was it? And then they lost in that Super Bowl and then never really got close to going to it again because in all those NFC championships, they basically got blown out except for the one. And so it's just like, and then you see this and it's just like, oh yeah, Andy Reid, 3 Super Bowls, probably going to get a fourth. And then it's just like, was Patrick Mahomes again, great quarterback, but it's also like he's doing it with just nobody. Like there's
Yeah,
nobody on this
and
team.
that's where the comparison that I would draw for him and Brady on why they're so similar is they can make. Yes, they have, like you have a Travis Kelsey, they had a Gronk, you have some decent players already, but for the most part, they're making other players better. There's my
Yeah,
comparison between the two players, or between Brady and Mahomes, is their excellence is they can make other players look good.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and then it's like now that Aaron Donald is gone, it's like, oh, Chris Jones is just the best defensive tackle in the league. And
Yeah.
the Saints, Derek Carr always had like 2 seconds to throw. I mean, I also don't understand how every fourth down obvious passing play, the Chiefs just do an all out blitz, and every offense that plays the Chiefs is just like dumbfounded that they do an all out blitz when it's a fourth down passing situation. And it's like, have you ever watched a Chiefs game? This is just what Spagnola does every fourth down or every third down when it's obvious passing play. He just sends the house and you have 2 seconds to throw. Nobody's figured out a way to, I don't know, give your quarterback 3 seconds to complete a pass.
Oh,
It's so
this next
frustrating.
week's going to be absolutely rough for the Patriots because, with saying that, I mean, you're talking about that. Listen to this. My brother just sent me this one.
Oh,
Patriots
Drake
off
May starting, right?
right, but listen to this. The Patriots O line this season, quarterback sack rate, they're 30th. Pressures allowed, 30th. Percent of dropbacks with a pressure, 32nd. Texas defense this season, yards allowed, they're fourth. Passing yards allowed per game, third. Opponents completion percentage, tied for first. This is going to be rough.
Well, they're just playing the Texans, so it's not like they're good. So, yeah, it's not like the Texans are good casinos. So you guys will probably win this week. But we just talked about the Monday night game. Let's talk about the Sunday night game casino. As if my bye week for the Eagles, it would have been perfect. Perfect if the Cowboys would have lost, but of course they play their best game of the season against the Steelers in a game nobody picked the Cowboys in. And now all of a sudden, both these teams are 3-2. They win on a last second touchdown, 4th and goal, 20-17. This was also a game that was delayed for, I think, almost 2 hours. I think an hour and a half because of rain and lightning delays. So, fun fact, casino, Dak Prescott, the only quarterback ever to throw a or to throw an interception in the same game on 2 different days. which is
Whew.
a very fun stat.
It
So
is.
he threw an interception on Sunday night and then technically Monday morning in the same game. So that's a great stat for the Cowboys to have. Congratulations. But also, the only difference in this game than what we've seen from the Cowboys all season was that they finally found a running game in this game. Rico Dottle, of course, 2 weeks after I drop him for my fantasy league, goes 20 carries, 87 yards, and then also catches a touchdown, going 2 receptions, 27 yards. Do you think this is a trend for the Cowboys, or do you
No.
think it was a fluke?
Fluke.
Yeah, I
Totally
agree.
fluke. Total
Uh,
fluke. I have no faith in the Cowboys whatsoever.
No, and
Zero.
also I think with the Steelers in this game, Fields had a decent game, 15 for 27, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were also playing a Cowboys defense where like all their defensive stars were out of this game. So I think that's the most alarming part is they were only able to put up 17 against basically the backups at all key positions for the Cowboys. So that's why I would say maybe I have a little faith in this Cowboys team just because their defense was that good with backups in. But yeah, I am right there with you, Casino. I think I have
Well,
more
I don't
marks
trust I
about the
don't trust
Steelers.
McCarthy at all.
Yeah. Well, again, the Cowboys, I
You
mean,
look at him on the sideline, every time they show him, he's just like, I don't know if he's just out of breath from walking. I don't know.
he just yeah, he kind of looks upset that he's there. But also in the NFC East, the Cowboys are not the team I'm scared of, Casino. The team I'm scared of is your Commanders.
Dude, and I will
And
say my Commanders, you know why? Because oh, by the way, remember we picked the Steelers? What happened? The Steelers lost.
yeah,
Just saying.
exactly.
Just
And
saying.
that was
I knew
after
it.
a
I knew it.
full-throated
I knew it. I
support
knew it. I
of
knew
the
it. I knew it.
Steelers this week.
By the way, the wife says she's on her way, so we've got 15 minutes.
Yeah, these are the last 2 games I wanted to talk about. And that was the Commanders, I mean, 34-13 over the Cleveland Browns, who have probably taken the mantle of the worst team in the league.
No, Patriots, Patriots. Dude, come on,
Oh, you
chill,
still
chill.
think that? Well, in this game, Deshaun Watson, 15 for 28, 125 yards, 1 touchdown. Also, I don't know if you're a body language expert, but this was the week that the peak Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play football body language happened, where he's walking out of huddles. He looks pissed off the entire game. He throws for 125 yards. Also rumored that he started a burner Twitter account just to complain about the coaches and his staff under a different name. Apparently, somebody found his burner account. And if it's not his burner account, you know how every Browns fan is just talking about how good Deshaun Watson is and how the team's bad and not the other way around. So that's why it's rumored that
Yeah,
it's his burner account because all this account
that's
does
insane.
is talk about how good Deshaun Watson is and how the
No,
team's wasting him. So,
but I
yeah,
will say, I mean, Jaden Daniels still didn't have the greatest of games 14 25, 238 TD and interception. He did have the most rushing for the team as well, though, with 82 yards. I I still like him. I watched a good portion of this
yeah,
game because I just want to see him. I mean, I think it was you that said it, unless it was somebody from my work. But you're like, oh yeah, but the Cleveland Browns defense, they can. We'll see what Jane Daniels can do up against that. I think it was you, and
I
I'm
think
like,
it was.
yeah, dude. The fact that he could go up to a decent defense, this was his real first test. They still put up 34 points.
Yeah.
Kid's gonna win MVP. I mean, not he's gonna win rookie of the year. But dude,
I
this
mean,
team
right
could
now he's the MVP front runner.
yeah, and he can legitimately win the division. Like
Yeah. No, he
I,
can.
I think they might have the chance to win it. I'm so happy that I knew they were going to be a decent team. Makes me feel good. I had so much more faith in Jaden Daniels.
If
Um,
the Eagles do not blow out the Browns next week and Deshaun Watson has his best game against the Eagles and they win, I will fully put my support behind the Commanders and pick them to replace the Eagles in the playoffs and then the Cowboys to sneak in there because they always do.
yeah,
This literally next week is a make or break for my hopes and dreams for the Eagles season. And with this game, the Commanders defense shot up to number 14th in total defense. So now their defense is playing better. Their league average, which is what I say you always have to be if you have a great offense, their offense is top 5 in the league, and Jaden Daniels is the MVP candidate. So as an Eagles fan, yes, I'm worried. As an NFL fan, it's nice to finally see the Commanders, once they get rid of their shit owner and Dan Snyder, like immediately, all of a sudden, they have a competent ownership and like front office and all this kind of stuff. That's hats off to him. And hats
Yeah.
off to Casino for calling it. Last game I wanted to talk about, Casino, was the Cardinals beating the 49ers by 1 point, 24-23. In just this was one of the weirder games of the week. Thoughts on both the Cardinals and what has happened to the 49ers, who are now 2-4 this season.
I don't know. I don't know. The Seahawks are still, even with the Seahawks. Am I muted?
No.
No. Oh, thought you. Even with the Seahawks losing against the Giants this week, which didn't see happening, Geno Smith still played a good game. I know we're talking about the Cardinals game, but dude, like, what is this division, man? Like, the Niners are bad. The Cardinals are feisty, just like what they were last year, but I don't have a lot of faith in them. The Seahawks are good, even though they just lost to the Giants, but I don't. I think that was just kind of one of those, just like, oh, the Giants had a really, really good game with Slayton and Josh, or the other quarterback, the other white quarterback with the same-ish name, whatever his name is.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, man. These two, the season's weird, man. This season's weird.
This season is weird because it's also like usually it's injuries that take down the 49ers, but it's like Jordan Mason has stepped in and been pretty comparable to what we expect from Christian McCaffrey. And then Brandon Ayuk had his best game of the season. George Kittle was the second in targets. So it's like they're only missing Debo and they're only missing Christian McCaffrey, but their replacements have stepped in and pretty much done what they do. So it's not like, oh, they're not getting any production from the running game. They're not getting any production from the pass catchers. It's like they are for both of those. And their defense is still, I mean, right now they are the 10th defense in the league. So their defense isn't playing bad. Their offense isn't playing bad, but yet they're still losing these games they should be winning, and they're 2-3. And it's also like, again, Brock Purdy had a rough game, but last week he had maybe his best game he's had in his career. So it's also like Purdy's not playing bad. Their offense isn't playing bad and their defense isn't playing bad. They're just losing these games in just weird fashion. Again, like you said, it's just a weird season.
The only thing I do know is that the NFC North, man, they're all still above 500. I mean, Packers, Bears, Lions. Well, Packers, Bears are 3-2. Lions are 3-1 because of the bye. Vikings are 5-0. Like, that's an awesome division. And I could see the Bears,
Caleb Williams, of those teams making the playoffs. Yeah. Now, Casino, anything you would like to mention about any of the games we did not talk about?
No, not really. We can move on to Casino's Corner and call it a day real quick.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to touch on, I guess, is the Broncos are much better than I thought they would be. Shout out to those guys who were flaming me in the comments at the beginning of the season. But I still think what's going to happen is their defense is going to get them to 8 or 9 wins, and then their offense is going to cost them the game either to get into the playoffs or a playoff game if they actually do get to the playoffs. Other than that, I feel bad for the Rams. The Packers, that was a weird game, Rams-Packers. And then the only other game we didn't talk about, the Jaguars-Colts game was just dumb. That was a dumb game.
I like that Joe Flacco ran for like 29 yards on that one play.
Also,
I like Flacco. He's
good. A top 10 quarterback in this league. He has been for like 3 years, the last 3 years.
It's so crazy.
He's good.
He just came. They just like got him from a shop or wherever he was working again, and they're like, "Hey, you want to come play football again?" And he's like, "Sure."
Especially in a year where all quarterback play is down, Joe
Yeah,
Flacco's just like, "It's down for everybody but me." And then he just steps in and is just slinging it. Joe
yeah,
Flacco's good.
yeah,
And then we briefly touched on the Bears. Bears kind of same thing with Broncos. Their offense is weird. Obviously, Caleb is better than Bo Nix, but their offense is weird, but their defense is elite. So that's how they're 3-2, much like how the Broncos are 3-2. They're almost the identical teams. But now it is time, as Casino just mentioned, for Casino's Corner.
yeah.
Hit us with the Casino.
All right, we're just going to briefly touch up on the WNBA and the MLB playoffs. With the WNBA, the Aces, two-time defending champions, are eliminated by the Liberty in a 3-1 victory, series win for the Liberty. Just kind of what I thought. Whoever won that is going to pretty much win the whole thing, because we do have Game 5 tonight with the Sun and the Lynx, the Minnesota Lynx and the Connecticut Sun, to see who advances. So the Liberty get a little extra rest time. I don't see whoever comes out of this other playoff round, the semis, who they're going to beat Liberty. So most likely Liberty are going to win the WNBA playoffs. I'll keep you, huh? Oh, okay, honey. I don't know. Of course, now everything just like goes off the rails right around this time. It's great. My son wakes up. My daughter's annoying. I love her to death. um, Moving over to the playoffs for the baseball. We did have last time we talked. We had a few teams advance. So the Tigers beat the Astros to advance out of the wild card, and the Mets beat the Brewers to advance out of the wild card. And currently, we have some really good baseball going on, where all four series, you have the Mets, Phillies, you have the Dodgers, Padres, Tigers, Guardians, and Royals, Yankees, all tied at one game apiece. I'm really excited for that. It looks good. Obviously, I want the Yankees and the Dodgers to be out. The Padres look like they have the best shot to beat the Dodgers. The Phillies, Mets seem like a really close series. That's going to
I've
be a
watched
tough
both
one,
those games. They were
but clinching kind of games.
oh, both of them. And then I'm gonna watch both games tonight too. Because I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, Padres Dodgers is also really good.
Oh yeah.
Padres, ooh.
Yeah. So this is going to be real fun. I'm a big fan. So yeah, we do have the Phillies Mets tonight, which is Tuesday. And then we also have Dodgers Padres tonight. Going back, so Padres did win one on the road, and I do like that. Now we're going to San Diego, which is not a far drive. But I am excited for this. It's been fun baseball, man. Both series are tied one, or all four series are tied 1-1. Let's go. Like
How much
extra baseball.
How much is Major League Baseball gonna hate when it's the Padres and Royals moving on to the next round? I mean, how angry are they gonna be?
Oh, I would just love every second of it, man. I would love every second of it. And honestly, in that first game, and for both series, the Dodgers were losing and the Yankees were losing, and they came back late and won. One was off a Shohei Ohtani 3-run homer for the Dodgers. Props to him. He does what he does, right? And then the Royals did beat the Yankees. The Yankees came back in that first game and barely won that one. So the Royals look like the better team so far. The Padres Dodgers is just whoever's got the hot bat that day. So yeah, I'm really excited for this series. And the Phillies Mets, flip a coin. Same with the Guardians Tigers. So yeah, no, it's been fun. It's just been fun for me. I would love to see Phillies, Tigers, Padres, Royals all move on, because I don't care for New York teams. The
I
Guardians,
think we're complete agreements in that.
I have no care for the Guardians. I have a couple
Also, their
Detroit
logo's
Tiger fans.
stupid.
Yeah, I have a couple
Their new
Detroit
logo's
Tiger
stupid.
fans, friends. So I'm cheering for the Tigers. And only reason for the Mets Phillies is I hate New York teams, and you're a Phillies fan. But that's the only reason. Obviously, I hate the Dodgers. Go Pods. Royals. I don't care about the Royals, but they're playing the Yankees.
Yeah.
So that's Casino's Corner. My daughter's about to come over and bug me again, and my son's awake. I got to get him fed, get my daughter ready for
And
swim.
that means it's the end of the podcast.
It's the end of the
End of
podcast.
Casino's Corner.
You
This
gotta
has
go swim
been the
today.
Only Sports Podcast.
Because you got to learn how to swim.
We will be back on Thursday with our first edition so far of our power rankings. I'll make a graphic. It'll be great. It'll be much better on the video than the audio. This has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino. Both of us in 4K. Look at our pores. We'll see you back here Thursday to make our picks for Week 6 of the NFL, and then also talk about a big weekend in college football. So yeah, I'm Will. That's Casino. Adios.